I'll have none of that.
Aloha, aloha. I'm Dale Rosenfeld, and this is Conscious Cannabis Conversations. Today, once again, we're with Wendy Gibson-Viviani, cannabis nurse Wendy. We're going to review a few things that we've done already and talk about Unity Day, 420 Unity Day. And then we'll be discussing Dr. Sue Sisley and her research and what she's up to now. Wendy, thank you for joining me. Welcome.
Always thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me.
You're welcome. So as we go on today, let's just first talk a little bit about 420 Unity Day. And I'm going to share the screen so that we can see who we are supposed to be contacting here and why. So please talk to me about what I have up here on the screen and what is 420 Unity Week and why should we be involved?
Sure. Well, the Last Prisoner Project and Students for Sensible Drug Policy banded together with a whole bunch of other groups to encourage cannabis activists to contact their legislators in Congress and also the president to encourage the rescheduling of cannabis. And so yesterday was a day that they went to the state capital, not the state capital, in Washington, D.C. capital.
The capital.
Capital to talk to legislators. And I sent letters to all of our people in Congress, encouraging them to ask Biden to fulfill his campaign promise to decriminalize cannabis on a federal level, and also for them to promote the MORE Act, which is a bill that would take cannabis out of the Schedule I drug category. So what you're seeing on the screen here is a link to the petition to Biden, asking him to fulfill his campaign promise to decriminalize cannabis. And then the second one is a link to your legislators so that you can send letters to them to encourage them to deschedule it or get it out of the Controlled Substances Act. And then the last two, well, the last one is a link to the Last Prisoner Project website so that you can see what activities are happening. So today is the beginning of, I believe it's called National Cannabis Festival. Yes, so that's going to run through the weekend. We'll run today and tomorrow. It's mostly a concert, but there's also going to be tables where the Last Prisoner Project is going to be educating people about descheduling.
So 420 has really changed from something in high school that we used to say 420, and then we'd run outside and meet all together and smoke a dope.
Yeah, I believe this is the dawning of the age of cannabis education, where we're finally going to learn more about the laws and how they've affected research and medicine.
Yeah, for so many of us, 420, it to me brings up medical. I'm a medical cannabis user. I so believe in it. I saw somebody the other day who said, so what? So I should just get as high as I can and then my back won't hurt? Well, no, that's not the way it works any longer. We have a lot more knowledge. And part of why we have this knowledge is pioneers in cannabis, such as Sue Sisley. That's who we're going to talk about now.
She's one of my favorite people. I want to make a cape for her. She's one of my superheroes. She is a a physician who practices in Arizona. She specialized in psychiatry and internal medicine. And she listened to her patients, the veterans with PTSD, who were telling her for many years that cannabis was helping them with their PTSD more than any of the prescription drugs, and it was helping them reduce their nightmares and helping them sleep. And she was disturbed about how many veterans have been dying from overdosing and suicide, and realized that there was a need to do some research on this. And so she became not only a medical cannabis patient advocate and activist, but a pioneer in cannabis research.
Wow, a pioneer in cannabis research. So for those of you out there who are interested in learning and researching, this is a whole nother section of the cannabis world. And
it's growing and it's huge and it's worldwide, and it's so encouraging. I just attended an international conference to see what's going on in all the other countries and in the United States. But there's a lot going on right now, and it's so, yeah.
It's
so
time. It's so time. It's 24 is our year. So 420, turn that around. We are here, 24, year 24. We are ready to learn and grow and do some more research. Wendy, I'd like to hear a little bit more about Dr. Sue Sisley. I want to make sure I'm saying her name with a doctor in front, because she is a researcher.
Yes, she is.
And go
she's
ahead.
focused on promoting whole plant medicines. She is not doing her research to try to create a synthetic or semi-synthetic medicine. She wants to research the whole plant medicines.
Okay, whole plant, not part plant. We're not just looking at one part of the plant. We're looking at the whole plant.
Yes.
What's the difference between using the whole plant or just taking an element out of it and using just that?
Good question, because scientists are trying to recreate a plant. And there's over 400 chemicals, and we know at least 200 of them have potential medicinal properties. But chemists, in order to get an FDA approved medicine, historically, it can only be one chemical. So the chemists have been trying to recreate the plant sort of like one or two chemicals at a time. And so the only prescription drug that is based on plant extracts is called Epidiolex, and that came out in 2018. And it's mostly CBD, it's purified CBD. It does have a little bit of THC in it, but they don't advertise that part. But it also has a couple of other cannabinoids, but they're in such trace amounts that the patients are finding that they have to use higher doses of the Epidiolex than the patients who are using whole plant derived medicines to treat seizure disorders.
So, I mean, we know that with so many other foods, which in this case, it's almost a food, it's a natural element that we're consuming. We know that calcium and magnesium, there's many others that work together. You know, you don't just eat lettuce. You eat lettuce with other things. Even if you're eating good arugula, you've got to eat it with other things. I eat my popcorn, but I put protein in it. Tell me how it is why would they even think that one tiny element would work? And how are we getting around this?
How are we getting around this? Well, we're slowly trying to develop whole plant medicines. And that's what Dr. Sisley's focus was on when she waited 6 years to get all the approvals to conduct her study using smoked cannabis. She wanted real world products. and she recruited veterans with PTSD. She's made history in so many ways. I'm not sure I can even list all of them, but let me tell you just a few. She was the first person in the history of cannabis research to get permission from multiple government agencies to look for the potential benefits of cannabis versus the harms. And she is the first one to ever get permission to use smoked cannabis to look for the potential benefits. And she also got the governmental agencies who provide the cannabis to the researchers to create some lab testing protocols, because the research materials that she got from them were very poor grade, very poor quality research materials.
I
She
remember
almost,
hearing that it was just like total junk seeds, stems, no real flower, no real cannabis.
it was, well, I guess the government thought this is their idea of whole plant medicine. So they ground up leaves, stems, seeds, everything, and from multiple plants, and stored it in a freezer for 3 years before they gave it to her to create her. She said that it didn't even smell like cannabis. She wasn't even sure that it was cannabis. It was like green talcum powder garbage. So anyway, sure, and her studies, she couldn't do better than placebo. So I mean, yeah, you can't really conduct. So anyway, sure, part of her groundbreaking, she sued the DEA for supplying such garbage to her. And the judge said, okay, you know what? You can grow your own research materials and you can share it with other researchers. So she's the first one to break the government's monopoly on providing cannabis to researchers. And she opened the doors for researchers who want to use whole plant medicines rather than synthetics.
Wow, an amazing woman.
Yeah.
So
And she's a friend of mine. I love her dearly. Yes, she's amazing.
maybe we'll ask her to come on one day if she
Oh,
had
good.
any time to take off time from her research.
Yeah, she's pretty busy. She's applied to do a second study, but she waited 6 years to get all the approvals for the first one. And there's so many roadblocks to cannabis research, and getting it for smoked cannabis is especially hard. She's expecting to wait at least 3 years to get the approval from the FDA. So in the meantime, she's been studying up on use of psychedelics for treating the veterans with PTSD, because those studies are showing such great promise. And
Are
it's
they
more,
talking about synthetic psychedelics or natural psychedelics?
you know, I'm not sure if they're, I think the push is to get whole plant medicines again, but what's being proposed is in order to get anything approved through the FDA, it pretty much has to be a synthetic. So I'm not real sure where they're going to land on that, but
Isn't psilocybin undergoing a lot of examination nowadays?
yeah, that's the main focus of the studies right now. And the trainings are training all kinds of healthcare professionals in how to guide the patients on their journeys and the pros and cons of using such treatment,
But
trying to
those
figure.
are whole plant. Yeah, they're using, is that not psilocybin coming from the mushrooms using the whole
Yeah,
plant?
yeah. I believe the studies, you know what, the studies might have been done using synthetics. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Wow.
But
Wow.
they did get some decent results. So they still have to undergo clinical trials to make sure that they are really safe. And there are side effects to every medicine, and psilocybin's no exception. People get, anyway, I don't want to get off track talking about those, but
Right,
anyway.
but that's an interesting, it's a side piece that's really part of the whole picture. That whole
Mhm,
picture being the whole plant medicine
yeah.
that she's working on. So now she's just shifted what plant she's looking at right
Yeah.
right?
But I want to share a story with people because, because 420 is tomorrow, and it's a day that I'll never forget. When I went to New York City in 2016, and I had already met Dr. Sisley in Hawaii, because she's the medical advisor for one of our dispensary licensees. And the dispensary asked me to join her at some presentations that she gave to some doctors and nurses. And so I got to know her. And then I saw her in 2016 at this Drug Policy Alliance event. They created a pop-up drug policy museum. And I saw her on 420 on that at that museum. And she had been waiting for 6 years to get all the approvals that she needed to conduct her research on PTSD and the veterans. And she came running up to me. She says, Wendy, you'll never believe what just happened. The DEA called me to let me know that I got my final approval to conduct my research on 420.
On what a beautiful day to do it. Yeah.
The DEA. Tell me somebody down there at the DEA doesn't have a sense of humor.
Right, right.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
So,
wow.
yeah.
So we can't expect to hear from her on cannabis right now, but rather on other elements of the whole plant.
Mm-hmm.
Where are we going tomorrow? Tomorrow's 420.
Well,
I
I'm
know
not.
that there's lots of cannabis cups and there's people who are looking to share the best product that there is.
Mhm.
And again, that coming out of those cannabis cups, I think if they're looking at the correct terpenes and all of the profiles of each of the plants that they declare the winner, that's a
Mhm.
great thing because then we can know how to use it even better. Do you think that that's going to happen at some of these events?
Well, what I'm hoping for is that at some of these events, at these cannabis cups, that they'll show that some of the the cannabis that has the best effects have a good balance of THC and CBD, that they're not the ones that are the highest in THC. I'd really like to see that.
Right. If
The
people could
best
understand that
experience,
difference. Yeah.
yeah, that the best experiences aren't coming from just getting as high as you can on the highest THC you can, but that it's other chemicals in the plant that are helping create the better experiences.
Right.
Like, as CBD can help buffer out the psychoactivity of THC and get rid of the anxiety and the paranoia, that THC can cause. So
That's one of the big things that I hear from people all the time. Someone gave me something and I smoked it, and no, I don't know
oh
what was in it, and it made me
gosh.
paranoid. And
Huh?
I mean, would I question these people? If somebody came up to you and said, here's a pill, I'm not going to tell you what's in it, just take it, trust me.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't trust them, but
I'm not opposed to people sharing their stash, and especially if they grew it themselves and they know that they didn't use pesticides and they didn't, they know what's in it and what's not in it. And they have an idea of what the effects are going to be. But yeah, we're seeing some serious side effects from some of the hemp derived cannabinoids.
and you're seeing side effects from those hemp-derived cannabinoids.
Yeah, big time.
Negative effects.
Oh, it's huge. It's an epidemic. It's bad. Yeah. The Delta-8, the Delta-10, or the whatever, the THCO, and there's the hemp derived intoxicating cannabinoids are a huge medical problem right now. Mhm.
So let's just go back to real cannabis.
Yep. Let's stick to what we know.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the chemists should not be trying to recreate a plant chemical by chemical and try to come up with the magic formula of which cannabinoids and terpenes and flavonoids or the
Just let us
magical.
be. Just let us
Just
be. Let us
use the plant. We
nature.
know that it works pretty well for autism and seizure disorders and Alzheimer's and
And
just
sleep
so many
and
pain and
depression
sleep.
and
Yeah.
yeah, all of
And
those things.
insomnia. So yeah. Anyway,
Well,
I
thank you.
just wanted to share my stories about Dr. Sisley, who's, there's many cannabis researchers who I would love to tell stories about. And yeah, anyway, but she's the one who I really wanted to share with you, especially around 420.
Yeah, yeah. Well, folks, if you are interested in contacting either of us, please take a look at, here's our information. Look at there. And feel free to contact us, ask us questions.
Yep.
Make comments,
Yep.
suggest a topic for us. We're
Sure.
here for you. We want to have these conscious cannabis conversations. Once we're aware of things, our minds change. Thanks again, Wendy.
Hey, thank you so much, Dale. I really appreciate you having me on.
See you soon.
Aloha.
Aloha.
Ahuiho.